The Nutcracker Ballet, retold by Deborah Hautzig, illustrated by Carolyn Ewing. It was Christmas Eve. Mary and her brother Fritz peeked into the living room. "Oh, I can't wait for the party to start," said Mary. At last, the living room doors were opened, and the children rushed in. The Christmas tree was dazzling. Hundreds of tiny candles twinkled. Sparkling decorations and candies hung from all the branches. Under the tree were so many presents. Soon the guests arrived. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends came carrying even more presents. Mary ran to greet her godfather. He was an odd-looking man. He was tall and thin. He wore a black patch over one eye and a frizzy white wig on his head. He looked magical and spooky, but he was a wonderful godfather. He always came with amazing toys that he had invented himself. This Christmas Eve, he came with a big red box and an even bigger green box. He opened the red box and out stepped a very big toy soldier. Godfather turned the key on his back. Crank, crank, crank. The soldier marched around the room. Left, right, left, right. As the key turned, he marched slower and slower. Then he jerked to a stop. Next, Godfather opened the green box and wound up two toy clowns. They danced together. Everyone clapped in delight. Then, Godfather looked under the tree. He picked up his present for Mary and gave it to her. It was a wooden nutcracker shaped like a little man. Mary knew at once that the nutcracker was special. His legs were too short, his head too big. He wore a fine purple suit with brass buttons. On his head was a funny little hat. His eyes were kind and gentle. He had a white beard and a wonderful smile. Godfather watched Mary with a twinkle in his eye. "It is a small gift," he said to her. Mary hugged the nutcracker and said, "It is the present I loved best of all." Then Fritz grabbed the nutcracker from Mary. "What an ugly fellow," he said. He ran across the room. Mary ran after him. Fritz put the biggest walnut into the poor nutcracker's mouth. Crack, crack, crack. 3 little wooden teeth fell out. "Stop it, Fritz, you're hurting him," cried Mary. She took the nutcracker back and rocked him in her arms. "I will protect you," she whispered, "forever." After the party was over and everyone was in bed, Mary couldn't sleep. She tiptoed downstairs into the dark living room. It was so quiet, and then, bong, bong, the grandfather clock began striking midnight. Mary was surprised by the noise. She looked up at the tall clock, and suddenly she saw something strange at the top. Something that was moving. Godfather was sitting on top of the clock. He peered down at Mary like an owl. "Godfather, you scared me," cried Mary. But before she could say another word, the most amazing thing happened. The Christmas tree began to grow. It grew bigger and bigger and bigger. As the Christmas tree grew, the windows and toys and everything in the room grew with it. Soon, the toys were the same size as Mary. Mary watched in amazement. Suddenly, she heard squeak, squeak, squeak. Then she heard the pitter-patter of many feet. Dozens of tiny eyes glittered and darted all around her. Mary was surrounded by an army of huge mice. Out jumped the king of mice. He had 7 horrible heads, each with a golden crown. He took out a sword and glared at Mary. "Where is Nutcracker?" he hissed. Mary would not tell him. The king of mice squeaked his command to the army. "Find Nutcracker." The door of the toy chest flew open. Out popped toy soldiers, puppets, and dolls. They were led by Nutcracker. Now he was the same size as Mary. Drums beat, trumpets blared. The battle began. He was leading the army of toys. Swords clashed, cannons boomed. Nutcracker's army chased the mice. But more and more mice came. Nutcracker's army of toys was being beaten. Mice surrounded Nutcracker. The king of mice grabbed Nutcracker's sword. "Now I have you," he squeaked. Mary watched in horror. "Oh, my poor Nutcracker," she cried. What could she do? She kicked her right shoe as hard as she could at the king of mice. Poof! Like magic, the mice were gone. Every single one. Mary turned to look at the Nutcracker she loved, and before her eyes, the funny-looking wooden Nutcracker became a handsome prince. He looked at Mary with his kind eyes and his wonderful smile. "You saved my life. Now let me take you to my kingdom, the land of sweets." The prince led Mary out the window and into Christmas Wood. The snowflakes tasted like sugar, and little snow fairies danced all around them. Soon they came to the prince's palace. A beautiful lady greeted them. "She is a sugar plum fairy," the prince told Mary. "And now, to the party." Mary and the prince went into the palace. They sat together on the golden throne in a crystal room. All the people in the land of sweets appeared. One by one, they performed their special dances for the prince and Mary. From Spain came the dance of hot chocolate. An Arabian lady did the dance of coffee. Chinese dancers jumped out of a giant teapot and did a lively dance. From Russia came the dancing candy canes. From France came Mother Ginger and her little puppets. They ran out from under her skirt and did a playful dance. Then all the flowers of the kingdom danced the waltz of the flowers. "I wish we could stay here forever," Mary said. "Yes," said the prince, "but now it is time to go on to other wonderful places." Mary and the Nutcracker prince stepped into a royal sled and waved goodbye. The sled rose slowly into the sky. Mary and the prince she had loved from the start vanished from sight. That's the end of this book, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Bye!